Hey everyone. This practice is focused on lower body mobility, and you may wish to have some sort of padding underneath your knees and also 1 or 2 yoga blocks. Let's start by sitting our right seat on that yoga block, maybe 2, and then step your right leg forward. Now, the closer you have your heel towards that yoga block, the more intensity you will bring into the ankle and the knee. So if this is too much, just step your foot out a little further away from you and or get your seat up a little higher. And then all we're going to do to start is to press our foot into the ground like we're pressing on our gas pedal and let our weight shift forward over that front leg. Continue to push into the floor. Try to relax your toes a little bit, but find that strong anchoring energy in the ball of your foot. Let's keep everything else exactly the same, but find the effort of lifting the top of your foot towards your shin, and you could even peel your toes off of the ground here. If you could actually get your foot off the floor while you keep your heel down, you can try that. And then once again, we'll press into the floor. And now pull. And press and pull. Last 2 and 1. Move your foot a little bit closer towards that block so you increase the amount of ankle dorsiflexion, and once again send your weight forward and press into the floor. Now find the effort of pulling, and we push and pull. Last 2, we're pushing, pulling, pushing, and pulling. And then we'll switch sides. Starting with just a little bit more moderation, heel a little bit further away from that yoga block, but send your weight forward. Press your foot into the ground. And then connect to the front side of your shin and ankle by trying to pull your foot towards your shin. And let's just move back and forth, pressing down and then pulling up. Pushing and pulling. We'll do 2 more in this position. Last one. And then bring a bit more intensity by tucking that left heel a little closer to your block. Shift forward, try to keep your heel down. Press into your foot tripod. Now, keeping your heel grounded, imagine pulling your foot towards your shin. And let's just continue with those 2 efforts, pressing and pulling and pressing and pulling. Last 2 and 1. Now you can set your yoga blocks aside, and we'll come into a half kneeling position. So let's step the right foot forward out in front of us. And let's creep our foot even further forward so that we have a diagonal line in that lower leg, but your left knee is directly under your left hip. And then we're going to use the back side of this right leg to pull our hips forward. So you're thinking of pulling your heel back towards the back of your mat, and then push through your heel and try to open up your knee. You could even pull your toes off the ground. As you rebend your leg, think of dragging your hips forward by pulling from your foot and your hamstrings, and then push away and lift your toes. 2 more times like that. Finding that push-pull energy. Last one. Try to keep those left glutes engaged the whole way through. And then you'll just switch sides. As you step your left heel forward, move your heel so that it's out in front of your knee. Back leg is vertical. Try to balance your pelvis from side to side. And you can do whatever you want with your arms here. They might just be helping you balance a little bit. Pull from the back side and then push. Lift your toes. 3 more times. Last couple. And last one. And then we're going to find a tabletop position, and you're going to need your yoga blocks for this. We're going to set the yoga blocks beside the right leg. And let's set them on their tallest side like this, and then get up fairly close to those blocks. We're just going to use the blocks as a way for us to stay honest with our range of motion here. We're going to be mobilizing the left hip in rotation, and what can tend to happen with this is we can shift our weight to the right. If we do that, the blocks are going to come tumbling down. So this is just a way to keep us honest and keep the rotation really focused in that left hip. Kind of like Jenga blocks. You might just barely touch against them, and that will tell you that you're kind of reaching that threshold where you might tip them over. So you can just then adjust and keep the rotation in your left hip. Let's pull left thigh towards the chest, widen across your upper back. Try to keep your tailbone reaching up and back here, so we're not doing the cat pose. Take your leg out to the side, and then reach back into extension, creating a nice smooth circle here with the left hip. Out and back, and then in and forward. One more in this direction. And then let's do 3 in the other way. Keep squeezing behind your knee here. Arms stay really straight. Equal balance between the right hand and the left hand. One more, back. Angle your knee out and your toe in as you pull it around. Now let's sweep the left leg straight out to the left. Try to keep your knees in about one line and extend your left leg straight. Set your foot down. Open up your chest now to the left. Right hand's going to stay planted, and you're just creating a little bit of twist in the upper trunk, but keep trying to level out your pelvis the best that you can. Left arm is going to thread underneath the right, and you can reach your right arm forward, twisting through that upper body. And then reset the tabletop. Press through your palms. Widen through your collarbones. Make your arms so strong that you can float your left leg off the ground, a little or a lot, and then reach it back behind you. Set your left toes down and start to push and pull from your left foot now, just giving your ankle a little bit of attention. And then we'll switch sides. Move your yoga blocks over to the left side now. And we have 3 controlled articular rotations with the right hip. Let's get super close to those blocks with your left thigh, and then try to keep that neutral spine position. Head and neck stay firm, and we're trying not to move the pelvis here either. So the only thing that's moving is this right hip. Let's pull in first. Sweep it out. Internally rotate your leg, and then take it back behind you. Pull it in. Open, reach. One more in this direction. Really push through both arms. Try to keep your elbows straight. Now reverse the circle, reach back first. Knee leads out and around to tuck in. 2 more, a little extra tension around that hip. More muscular engagement, more focus. More dedication to rotation. From here, we'll sweep the leg straight out to the right, opening your hip into abduction, and then try to kick your leg straight and set it down. I didn't give myself enough room, I hit the wall. So now, Your left hand is going to stay part of your foundation. Rotate your chest open towards the right big toe. And then we'll thread the needle. Right arm hooks underneath, left arm can reach forward. We're finding that rotation in the upper body. Find the regular foundation for tabletop in your arms. Equal pressure right and left sides. Float your right leg off the ground and then reach your right leg behind you, nice and straight. And then just take a short break with your wrists. You can set your blocks off to the side for now. And you probably won't need your blanket at this point, so you can just set it off to the side. And then we'll find a seat. Legs out in front of us, heels a little wider than the hips, hands behind. Let's first start by lifting the toes. And keeping our pelvis square, we're just gonna fan the legs right and left, like our windshield wipers. You're not going for the biggest motion here. You're going for the most focused hip rotation. So take a peek down at your pelvis and make sure you're not rotating to the side like this. Isolate your thigh bones. And now we'll switch to pointing the toes, lifting the heels, keeping the ball of your foot on the ground, and do the same. Ooh, I think I have a calf cramp creeping in. Couple more rotations. Great. Let's find the 90-90 position. Right leg is in front, left leg is trailing to the side. 90 degrees bend in both knees so that if you were looking at yourself from above again, you would have that pinwheel-like shape. So take a peek over at your left knee. If it's too close to your right heel, guide it back so you're in hip extension here. And with your front leg, think of your femur bone coming straight forward of your hip so that your knee and your hip are in the same line. Now, if this position right here is uncomfortable for you, I'd recommend lifting up your pelvis and setting a block or a blanket underneath your right sitting bone. And we're going to isometrically press both legs into the floor, straight down to ground. Try to calibrate that really wide 3D breath, breathing into your side ribs, minimizing movement in the chest or the shoulders. When we breathe through the nose, that takes that inhale really deep into the lower lobes of the lungs for a more functional breath. 3 more, increasing the tension of that grounding effort in the legs to root. And now we're going to keep the right leg grounding, so nothing's going to change there. But with this left leg, we're going to alternate between external rotation as we keep the foot down and lift the knee, and internal rotation as we set the knee down and try to lift the heel. Now this movement might be fairly small, especially in that internal rotation. So if it helps you to lean a little bit more towards the right, definitely try that. But aim to keep your pelvis facing forward. In other words, if you feel yourself twisting and turning your whole pelvis, don't go so far. Instead, just barely try to float that lower leg off the ground and keep your pelvis facing the same direction as your front leg shin. Let's do 3 more. Internal rotation, and then we sweep away. Last 2. Notice if that left knee is creeping forward towards your right heel, and try to take it straight out from your hip. Last 1. And then we're going to press down with that right leg still. Extend your left leg straight out from your hip, and then try to come up onto your seat and take your left leg out in front of you. Hover it for just a moment, and then switch legs. Left leg is now in external rotation, and now your right leg is your trailing leg, and we're coming straight out from the hip. And then we're just going to settle. Press down. Get grounded. Breathing. A broadening breath from left to right. And then if you need to unload this right hip a little bit, if you're feeling a little pinched or restricted on the right hip, remember you can lean over towards the left. We're going to continue to ground with the front leg and find our external and internal hip rotation, alternation with our trailing leg. I like to keep my right hand on my pelvis so that I can feel for neutral position there, really stable isolation of hip rotation. And it will help to ground your left leg even more. That'll give you just a little bit more stability in that lower limb. Let's do 2 more. Last set. And extend your right leg straight out from your hip. Hover it if you can. Bring it back out in front of you. And then we're going to switch back to the other side. So you might see if you can float just for a moment. Come back to that 90-90 position, this time with the right leg in the lead and the left leg trailing. Now we're going to work on hinging forward and hinging back upright. And the work is going to mostly happen here now in the front leg. So when we hinge forward, let's think about pulling our right leg towards our chest. And what really will happen then is we'll hinge our spine forward. It might feel better for you to keep your fingertips on the ground. And then to rise up out of this, really press through that outer right leg to bring your spine more upright. Pull yourself forward. That comes from this inner right thigh. And then press from the outer right hip to rise up. 3 more, pulling in from the front side and pushing away. Last 2, pull from that inner thigh. Now push away. Last one, we're trying to use the hip flexors to pull our trunk forward over the leg. Hold. Very little weight in the hands, if any at all. And now push. Push yourself back to that rising position. Let's lean to the right a little bit, offloading the left hip slightly. Try to keep your left leg level with the horizon and float the entire leg off the ground. Heel and knee at about the same height. Extend your leg straight. Bring it out in front of you and switch legs. If you can do that without touching the hands down, great. If you need the support of your hands, then use them. Make sure we've got that good 90-90. Stagger with the legs, trying to visualize yourself from the top down and seeing that pinwheel shape. And now we're going to push and pull our way into this stretch. The first action is as if you were trying to lift your leg up to your chest, but instead, because you're grounding, your chest will lean forward. Push the floor away with your left leg to rise back up. Front side of the hip pulls you in. Outside of the hip pushes you back. Let's do 3 more. Pull in. Push away. 2 more times. Pull. Push. Final one, we're going to hold the pull, thinking about lifting your left leg up towards your chest, and then push back. Grounding through the outside edge of that left leg. Offload the right hip by leaning over to the left. Keep pressing down through the outside edge of your left foot. Try to lift your left leg in one piece. Notice that that knee wants to come forward towards your heel. I want you to think about reaching it back instead. Float it. Now kick it. Now we're going to swing both legs out ahead of us and switch 1 more time. Last set here. First, find that staggered stance, your 90-90 position. You can offload the left hip by leaning to the right if that helps you. Stay pressing down with that right leg. Float your left leg up off the ground. Keep reaching your knee backwards. Extend. Flex. Extend. And flex. Make sure that that left knee doesn't come forward towards your right heel. You're going to try to keep your leg coming straight out from your hip like an arrow. Let's do 2 more. Lifting on the right side of the waistline through those ribs so that we're not slouching into that bottom arm shoulder. And then try to float your legs as you switch sides. Use your hands if you need to. Start with the 90-90 shape. Press down with your front leg. Offload the right hip if that helps you. And as you lift your right leg as one piece, remember we're trying to keep kicking back into hip extension using the glutes, and extend and bend. A few more, lengthening through the hamstrings and then shortening the hamstrings. Keep kicking that right hip into extension without allowing that right knee to travel forward towards the heel. Let's do at least 2 more, lifting a little bit on the left side. Staying out of that left shoulder. Last one. Pull and kick. And then you're going to find a straddle seat. Take your legs wide, but maybe not your widest. We're going to practice a little more of that kinetic stretching. So we're going to be working on both sides of the hip here. Driving your legs into the ground, especially your heels. When you do that, you can also think of dragging your heels towards your body, and that might cause your knees to bend a little bit. It's totally fine. From the front side of your hip, think of pulling your trunk to the floor. So you're not letting gravity do this for you. This is an intentional hip flexion. And then push the floor away. Feel the work on the back side of your hip, near your glutes. Pull from the front side into that hip hinge. And then push into the ground to bring yourself back up. It's all happening in the lower body. Let's do 5 more of these. Hinge, pull yourself forward, maybe a few more degrees if it's there. Push into your heels to come back up. The pulling forward is happening in the front of the hip. The pushing out is coming from the back of the hip. 4 more, pull forward. If you want to use your arms, you sure can. But try not to rely on them too much. Let the pelvis tip forward as you hinge. And then you can think of tucking your tailbone under to help pull you back up out of this. I see we have at least 2 more. I kind of lost count. At least 1 more. Let's hold the hip hinge position. Even if you could flatten your chest to the floor, try to hover just off the floor. Breathe for 5, 4, 3, 2. Put the work on the back side. Now push the floor away to bring your chest upright slowly. Beautiful work. That's all I have for you today. You might want to finish this practice with a few windshield wipers, just kind of mobilizing gently around your hip capsule. I look forward to hearing your feedback on this class, and I hope you have an excellent day. Thanks for being here.